morning. I thought I would actually just invite you into my studio again as I'm working on well, a little bit of a challenge, but also a commission. So I thought I'd give you the opportunity to kind of just talk about my commission process a bit. I think I'm just going to change the angle a little bit of the camera because I'm still working through this. There, hopefully that'll work. Okay, so I have a zero risk commission policy. Which basically means that I move forward with a client, and if they don't totally love it, they don't have to take it. And I'm actually very, very comfortable offering that commission policy, and there's a couple of reasons for that. One is that it really allows me to do the painting the way that I want to do it. So at the end of the day, I still feel like I have a strong painting, even if the client doesn't love it. Otherwise, I found very early on when I did this, sometimes I would try and compromise what I was doing so much that I ended up with something that the client didn't love and I really didn't love either, so that was kind of a waste. The other thing is, it allows clients to move forward much more comfortably, knowing that at the end of the day, if they really don't love the piece, they haven't invested a lot of money in something that they don't really want on their walls. And I have heard that story many times, that clients are reluctant to do a commission because that has happened to them before. So in actual fact, the commission I'm working on right now was exactly that scenario. So this is a commission for Mercy Hospital, which is in the US, which I am working on through a corporate art buyer in Grand Rapids. And that was thanks to the Blink book. That's my little plug there for Blink, that she found me. So basically what happened is that they wanted something bright and cheerful and happy for the birthing room in their healthcare center. And so, you know, in the US, there's a lot of money put into healthcare centers and making sure they feel warm and comfortable and inviting and not sterile. And so a lot of them invest in real art, which is great. So they did that. They invested in real art. They got a piece that they found was a landscape that was very dark, so more I think in a Dutch tradition. That's what I'm visualizing. She didn't say that. And so therefore, when it went on the wall, they were like, well, it's not happy and uplifting. It's not what we wanted, but we commissioned this piece from this artist. Finally, they went back to the artist and said, look, we just needed to have it a little bit brighter and a little bit more uplifting. And so he apparently put some chickens or something in the front to brighten it up. So needless to say, it was not working. And so that is exactly the kind of scenario where you have someone, he probably was super happy with the work. I'm guessing that it was probably in his style. So he was probably frustrated, the fact that it didn't really work out for them. And the client is frustrated because ultimately they have a piece that might be really beautiful, but wasn't really serving the purpose of the setting that it was going into. So anyway, so now I'm doing this piece. And so one of the ways that I really try and make sure that we're all super clear on what we're trying to do is I create this commission document. So in the commission document, I usually try and have a picture of their space, and I try and superimpose the painting into their space so they can really visualize what it's going to look like. So I have learned that a lot of people are not that great at visualizing a piece. They often think that a piece, it needs to be smaller for the space, when in actual fact, a lot of times a piece calls out for something larger than what they've requested. By doing it like this, it helps a lot for them to be able to see it in their space, as opposed to visualize it in someone else's space. So I usually get them to take a piece of a green painter's tape and do a 12-inch by 12-inch square on the wall where they want it, and then make sure they're nice and fully far back, take a photograph of it, and I use that to extrapolate the approximate size of the painting that's going to go in the space. I then work on what color background do you want, what's the shape that you're looking for, what is the kind of essence that you're trying to communicate with this piece. Now, of course, that's all said with the caveat that, you know, I already know that they like my work, otherwise they wouldn't have approached me. They know my style, they know the way I work, they know the energy, they know that there's like fish and stuff like that. So what this really does is it helps them to kind of say, okay, within Kate, your framework of all you do, the things that I like are fish coming from the bottom corner, or I want them to go right to left because I want them to draw the eye towards the kitchen or whatever. So that's not really, in my mind, a compromise. It's more of a communication that's basically saying, of all the thousands of paintings you've done, Kate, these are the kind of shapes and flows that I like the best. And so that's what I work on. I also work on what colors they like. And a lot of times they'll kind of say all the colors, and that kind of makes sense because the reason they're attracted to my work is presumably because they like the colors. But one of the things I find is super interesting to ask is, which color do you hate? And because often people are not able to articulate necessarily the colors that they love, and they don't want to also restrict me, and I don't want to be so restricted that I'm kind of working with a small color palette, especially because the client doesn't often totally understand, what I'm trying to do. So, but they're often very clear on the colors they hate. The two colors in my mind that seem to come up quite often, and I don't know why, is Kelly green and yellow. So Kelly green is very easy for me not to use. When I'm laying out my palette, I just don't put it on the palette. Like I work with 7 or 8 other different colors of green, so it's not really a big compromise not to put the Kelly green on my palette. Yellow is a problem for me because I do love yellow. I love the tappiness, and I love the fact that it pops out any color, any piece of art. So what I will usually say is, I hear what you're saying, and I hear that you don't love yellow. However, one of the reasons I have the zero risk policy is because sometimes a painting calls out for yellow. And if I really feel that, I'm going to put yellow in. And at the end of the day, if you still don't really love the piece because it has yellow in it, I'm totally okay with that. I have to say 9 times out of 10, actually probably higher than that, people will kind of go, yeah, I don't like yellow, but you're right. This painting needed it, and I love it in this space. So anyway, that's kind of the way I work. And I truly am okay if they don't love the piece. And I've been in meetings before where I've delivered the painting, and I did one recently actually, and she's like, no, I love it, it's great. I'm like, I got that feeling that it was great, but it wasn't quite there yet. And so I said, look, I can feel there's something about it that bugs you. And it's better to deal with it now than to have the feeling that you kind of got something you don't love. And she's like, I really love the painting. I just don't like the color of the sides. So of course, super easy problem to solve. I gave her a different color side. It hadn't been resined yet. And so that's an example of where easy for me to make the fix. She loved it just so much more when she finally got it delivered. She really felt that I had listened to her, and I'd listened to the concerns, and I was watching her body language to see whether or not she loved it or not. So anyway, as a result, probably about 30% of my work is commissions, because I try and make it super easy, super approachable, and super fun if possible. So the commission I'm working on today is a little bit unusual for me because it's actually on canvas. And it's canvas that's going to be rolled and then shipped to the US. And partially that's because she wanted it super fast. So as many of you know, I don't work on canvas very often. So I had a couple of challenges figuring out where to get the canvas. And then I could not find a stretcher in Kingston that was 36 by 48. So what I did is I bought a panel and I stretched it over top of the panel. So because a lot of my work is the wood grain is so important to it, I don't have the wood grain to work with on this. So what I like to do is I like to create almost like a watercolor background to replace the wood grain. And you can see back here a panel I was working on that it has almost like that watercolor type of look. And so what I'm going to try and do on this is to also reproduce the watercolor look. So I'm going to, so basically what she wants, she sent me a picture of what she likes. Interestingly, on her computer, the background came up very much more aquamarine and cobalt blues versus the original painting, which was much more lavender. So that's one of the other reasons for the document, because I sent her a picture of the original painting that I had, which of course is a high-res JPEG of the actual piece of art, not looked at it from her screen. And she's like, whoa, 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 I don't want it lavender, I want more blues. So that's what I'm kind of working on. So I think I'm going to be doing, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually create this kind of watercolory background. Oh, I guess that one I haven't opened yet. Oh, yeah, I have. A little bit of that in. And you will watch me try and figure it out. So the other thing that was hilarious, because I'm an idiot and didn't realize, when I bought the canvas, they folded it for me. And I had to buy ready gessoed canvas. So it's ready gessoed canvas on linen, which feels really beautiful. I think it's kind of a nice feeling to it. But what I didn't clue in is, of course, it was folded good. So when I unfolded it, it had all these lines on it. So of course, first thing I did is call my sister because she works on canvas all the time. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I get rid of the lines? So she said, wet it down. So I wet it down, and it was, now not only did it have the lines of the fold, it also then had buckles and wrinkles through the whole thing. So I was like freaking out. So anyway, I totally soaked the thing. And now I've got it nice and smooth. So I'm hoping that works. And I also, then I kind of thought, well, I don't want to damage the panel underneath because I still want to use it. And it actually has really lovely wood grain. So I covered that with plastic, then put the canvas over top, tacked the canvas. So I'm going to work on it like this. And then when it's finished and dried, then I will roll it and ship it. That's the plan. So what I do when I'm doing these backgrounds is I want to kind of have a bit of a watercolor-y look. Now, I'm not a watercolor painter, so this is always a little bit of experiment, and for me it's not always as predictable as working on the backgrounds because I've worked with the colors and the pattern and the wood for so long now. I have a good sense of what I'm going to get and how to get there. So I have a couple of really big soft brushes. This one I bought when I was doing that show in China with Helen, so they had some, as you can totally imagine, some really great art stores that had some really wonderful brushes. So I love this one because it's big and it's nice and soft. The challenge with this one a little bit is that the hairs kind of fall out. So I'm sure that's probably my fault because I probably didn't store it properly. I just need to grab some white. See if there's any questions. Nope, no questions. Hi, thanks everyone for joining me. Okay, so I think I'm going to start off and try and get something that's really watery to just kind of get rid of the white. That actually is probably pretty close to what she's looking for. Now I've dampened this canvas. Partially I had to dampen it in order to get it on the panel. But partially too because I really wanted to kind of have the colors really blend a little bit so they weren't really quite so defined. That was kind of my goal. And the other nice thing about this canvas, which again I wasn't really sure if it was going to be like this or not, is it has it doesn't have a lot of resist. I've worked with some canvases before and they kind of have more of a resist, which then kind of doesn't look so great. So I'm going to do multiple layers here. I'm loving this color. Put some of that on the top. I think that's kind of where I want to go with it. So anyway, I'm going to kind of play with this, and then what I'm going to do so this is kind of the fun part. This is way less rigid than what I kind of normally do within my work, so that's making it kind of fun. And then I'm just going to, once I get kind of this a little bit further along, I like to kind of create a little bit of interest. It's a challenge because I want to have the interest like the wood grain creates the interest, but I don't want to create something that's kind of so dramatic that it becomes a dramatic background and dramatic stuff on top and so much going on that it becomes kind of chaotic and gross. So the goal is to not do that. See, there's some hairs in this. So anyway, that's what I'm working on. If you have any questions about my commission policy, or if you want to steal it for your own, please do. I think that I find it works super well for me. And I think that eliminating the risk allows you at least to start the conversation with a client of how you're going to move forward on something. So, if the client doesn't like this piece, again, I'll make sure that it looks like it's something that I can actually, it looks like a Kate Taylor still, something I can still incorporate into my portfolio and sell it somewhere else. But I'm pretty confident that I have a good sense of what the client's looking for. So I'm hoping that will work out. So anyway, I'm going to do a couple of layers, probably about 3 or 4 layers of the paint, just to kind of so I can get some really interesting overlayering and stuff. But that's all. Thank you so much for joining me in my studio today. If you have any questions or if there's anything specifically you want me to talk about, then let me know. I'm just doing this because I figured I'm painting anyway, I'm hanging in my studio anyway, so it's always nice to have a little bit of company. Like Mr. Rogers. He's like, come into my neighborhood, come and chat. It's lovely to see everybody. Okay, bye.